So it may be pretty obvious to you that how the British Army trains its soldiers has substantially changed over the last 30 years. As someone who's went through that training pipeline back in 2006 to being an instructor around 2014, 15, to then now going back into an instruction role now in 2024. I'm here to sort of spell any myths and sort of talk a little bit about how much training has changed and why it's a good thing. I wanted to do this video not just I have to shout out to let me get my notes here, to MindKing5653, who put this message in my sort of comment section below in my community tab. So if you are a subscriber, jump across there and we do sort of engage there regards to new videos. But it says maybe how the training you get has changed since you joined. So that's the question they had asked. And I'm now going to sort of do a video on that because it is a very, very good question, because it can potentially hold people back from joining. So basic training has changed so much. And a lot of people, before they go to basic training, they see all like the sort of movies and how Hollywood portray it, and they start to worry a little bit about it. There is an element of it's going to be different. When you arrive at basic training, it's a totally different aspect. You've something you've never experienced before in your life, unless you've been in the reserves or something like that. But you're going to be, 9 times out of 10, you know, taken out of your family home for the first time and placed into this new situation where you're living and sleeping and doing everything else here. And you're now placed with a lot of different people from different social circles. Back when I joined, there's a lot of stupid stuff happening in training that does not happen anymore. It just doesn't. And when I say about stuff like the whole thing about on the ranges, so when you're doing your live, you're firing like bullets, so your live ranges. If you didn't get stuff right, you got absolutely beasted. So you were getting sprinting up and down the range, crawling around the range, doing all the rest of it. And then what they were realizing with, like, when you're in basic training, you only have allocated a certain amount of time to learn something, or as an instructor, teach something. So the recruits, so me at the time, we weren't getting any better at shooting, because then our now heart rate was like racing. And then if we weren't understanding something about the marksmanship, so how to beat the marksmanship principles, or whatever it was we were doing that shit, now being absolutely hounded for half an hour, coming back onto the firing point, you were no better at shooting, and you'd now lost 30 minutes of training time doing it. So the vicious circle was then happening where you weren't actually getting the sort of skill set that you were trained to do. That's not the crack now. The crack is now there's a lot more mentorship and stuff there now within training, and people now are a lot more invested, because potentially they would have had the sort of not so good experiences and they don't want that to happen. But at the same time, you are joining the army. There will be stuff that's different, and when you're in basic training, specifically for the army, that is not what the army's like. That will change once you leave basic. And lots of that stuff I was saying to you about running around the ranges and all that kind of stuff. And another one was like the track plan challenge. So if you're in a harbour area, or living in the forest basically, or watch what the acronyms are using, and you're just like crawling around if you like forgot something, and people say, yeah, it's to distill discipline and all the rest of it. I get it, but there's other ways now that we do within training that still makes training arduous and hard, but you learn from it, and you're not just getting beasted for the sake of it. Because, you know, we gotta say it, and I definitely seen it now, coming from being in the army 18 years now, and looking back on them experiences, I have had people in charge of me who were just, they've got into a position of power and they were just abusing that, and they were having fun with it, that kind of stuff. Whereas that doesn't really happen anymore. People are more invested because we see what's going on in the world. Being in the army is an important role. You have to have all the sort of skill sets in order, and people need to be trained and mentored in the right way to go and do the actual job. It's not all fun and games. This isn't sort of peacetime as such. For the people there who are saying they're losing sort of faith in the army and how we're training people, and the comment I made at the start of this video about not shouting at recruits, probably that has come out in a statement somewhere, but I will tell you now, the voice gets raised. And that's just the way it is. I'm about to go to a training establishment in about 3 months time. I'm now finished with my unit. I'm going to go and leave and the rest of it, I'm going to start there. Will there be elements of time where my elevation and how I'm talking to you now is raised? 100% it will be. Because if I don't do that there, that's a complete lie, what I'm selling them for what's going to happen in battalion or unit or corps, wherever they're going to go to. Because when you're going on operations and the bullets are flying and the bombs are going off and everything is chaotic, you need to raise your voice to get your point across, specifically if you're a leader, because then you really need to grab the hold of people's attention. Now, what gets pulled away from that sort of statement about people saying people not getting shouted at in training is not getting shouted at for the sake of it, if that makes sense. So not just going in screaming and shouting at someone for zero reason. Do you know what I mean? I do believe that if someone's getting something wrong, and if I'm getting right up into your face and I'm just screaming and shouting at you and there's slobber going all over your face, you're potentially just going to switch off, just get through that shit, and nothing's going to be done about it. But if you take the time to explain why something's going wrong, or why this is going wrong, or the effect this has, if someone has a UD, for an example, so that's unintended discharge, so the fire off the action on a blank round, some people don't take it as serious, as in, I am talking about recruits now when they're very first joining it, because they haven't got experience around the weapon systems yet. They think it's like Laser Quest or something like that there, and it's like bringing the home truth of what that is in their hand, and the consequences of what may happen if they do not take the time to learn the drills properly, and for that not to happen, if that makes sense. So there is a time for it, but when it comes into like exercise and operations, 100%, you know, the voice will get raised. Whenever people were commenting on it, they were saying, yeah, British Army's now turned around to training establishments where voices will not be raised at recruits, something along the lines of it. I should have done my research and actually bring up the actual piece that the person wrote. But in all the commenters on here, on the rest of the internet, we're sort of saying, backing this whole thing about the British Army's gone woke and this is how it's gone woke. I can tell you 1 billion% now, it hasn't. It definitely hasn't. And that's coming from I've got zero reason to lie to you. Being around the people who I'm operating with and working with, it just hasn't. Like, it's just not. And it's really, it's disappointing when you see a statement like that pop out and everyone just jumps onto it, because it potentially might be a viral video, because it's the whole hot topic, British Army's gone woke, but it genuinely, it's not. And will people still raise their voices in training establishments? Yes, they will. Will they actively go to belittle people and scream and shout at them and make them feel like dirt? No, they won't. They will be mentors, and I can genuinely see it now. The mentorship now, in regards to majority of instructors now, has changed so much since I very first joined in 2006. Now, when I look at them, there is a lot of people invested. I've seen so many people now, they're actually going out of their way in their own time to, you know, think of ways and how they can enhance training and enhance mentoring people. And when they go on these sort of exercises and stuff, is like, okay, what other stuff can we do now to you know, be more inventive, and to get them, the person who's going through the course or whatever it may be, to think in a different way to get the best out of them. There is that, because everyone now, it's just looking, like I said before about current affairs, we're looking at the rest of the world now and what it is, and how important it is to be a soldier and be all over it. And by actually investing in the next generation, it's, you know, you're doing the organisation well. And to be honest, I do feel like on the internet, there's more of the negative voices are elevated, and that's more of a viral video than people actually, you know what, it's actually all right, and like being positive and stuff. Because I think as well, when I speak to other people actually in real time within the army who come across some of these videos, they do say they want to do stuff like that as well, but they're just worried about people in their peer group getting amongst them, because they're like putting their head above the parapet to speak positively about things, and they're just looking at brownie points and all the rest of it. And it is kind of disappointing when you hear about all that kind of stuff, because I am not the best soldier. I am only one little soldier within this army, and within one role. I am in the Royal Irish. Imagine now you had all these different channels. You had like a para channel, you had like an armoured channel with armoured tank infantry. You had all these like specific stuff for people who are just, and there is 1,000,000%, and all these different and it doesn't even have to just be the infantry, all these different corps and stuff. There's positive people who love their job and will flip and do years and years, and they'll rise to the top in their jobs. Imagine all them doing stuff and all the information you were getting, and you weren't just thinking it was me just talking crap to you to get you to come in, because I have nothing to gain for you to coming in. I would just rather see you making the best decision for whenever you do come in. So that is a little bit about training. It is definitely changed since back in the day, but there will always be someone sitting here saying back in the day, because we're always moving forward, and someone else's back in the day will be different to someone else's. But what I'll tell you is, as the years have go on, we move on and we get developed and we get better. Please do not get sucked into thinking that everything's bad, everything's negative, and also don't fall into that sort of category thinking that we're all going to hold hands and hug each other in basic training, because it's not. Because we've got to think about what we're here for, why you're actually deciding to take the fucking step forward and serve for your country, and what that actually means. So you've got to consider all that before you commit yourself to it. Because 100% I did see it during that sort of COVID era. you know, a lot of the people were only here for the wage, and that really, you can really see that in two soldiers. You can tell the difference from a soldier who is just there for the wage, the easy ride, or someone who's there to be an actual soldier. And when you could put them into tough times, this one absolutely crumbles like a wet biscuit with this one. And I did see that multiple times before we were going on sort of overseas exercises and stuff. But now, hopefully, because I don't know, I'm not out in the economy, you do have good opportunities out there which aren't in the military. So hopefully people will get the chance to go and make something of themselves in Civvy Street. And hopefully you or anyone else who's wanting to come to the military, you're coming because you actually want to serve, and it's not just for a wage and all the rest of it. But yes, so thank you, Mind King, on the community tab for that sort of question. I hope that answered any questions for yourselves. And if anyone who's just come across this channel and video for the first time, maybe that'll give you a little bit of insight into the whole sort of training thing in regards to the British Army. And if you like that video, please consider liking and subscribing if you're new here. This channel is completely everything to do with military, and I will see you again on the next video. See you in a bit.